This art lesson is all about styrofoam printmaking of contour portraits. If you've never tried contour drawing, you have to try it. It's an amazing way to practice drawing from direct observation. My students created a whole series of contour drawings that we then transferred to small pieces of cardboard for styrofoam printmaking. This video will focus more on the printmaking part than the actual contour drawing. So if you're interested in learning exactly how to do it, check out the contour drawing video above. We did lots of practice before we went on to our final images, and contour drawing is great because you get to practice so many times before you select the actual drawings you're going to use. You can do this process with a photograph that you trace, or it doesn't have to be a contour drawing at all. Check out my link above for my musical instrument printmaking. If you love learning about art, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an art tutorial. Contour drawing is where you use one continuous line to draw the contours or outer edges of an object. You can do this by drawing people, pets, your hand, anything can be done in the contour style. Notice how slow I'm drawing. So I am looking at a person and I'm trying to draw just the outer edges. Now you can see I picked up my pen because I ran into my other drawing, but contour drawing is focusing on keeping your pen down for one continuous line. No erasing, no shading, and it's almost like a roadmap to hand-eye coordination. So what you're seeing with your eye is what your hand is drawing. So your hand is an extension of your eye. So I'm doing this all on one page, and I'll do one more contour for you to watch. Again, if you're interested in just why contour drawing is important and just the ins and outs of it, check out my link above that I will also put in the description box for very detailed contour drawing. So my students have practiced this for several days before we got to this point because it is a little unnerving, especially if you do blind contours where you don't look at anything but what you're drawing. It is not supposed to be a perfect, pretty picture. It is a way to learn, and the style of contour drawing should look like a contour. It's not supposed to be photorealistic. It's such a great way to practice drawing from direct observation. So many times it's hard to draw what you see, and this is such a great way to practice. I love contour drawings because I think it gives so much personality to the object you're drawing, which typically is a person or a portrait. So once you have a page of contours, it's time to get your styrofoam printmaking. I purchased this, and this is an easy carve styrofoam. And what I'm going to do is cut out my contours and arrange them on my styrofoam so I can trace. So you could draw directly onto the styrofoam, but then you have no control for erasing, or if you don't like one, it's too late. So what I plan on doing is drawing as many contours with different angles, different hairstyles, and then cutting out my favorite ones and arranging them on my styrofoam so I have a little bit more control with how it works out. If you're doing this in a sketchbook, just know that you're going to be cutting them out, so it might be best to do it on scratch paper, or if you love the way you organized it in your sketchbook, just trace the whole page without cutting it out. I felt like cutting it out was the best way for me to really have control over the way I wanted to arrange. Okay, this is a contour drawing I did of myself looking in my phone. It's fun to draw yourself, but then if you don't like how it looks, it's kind of annoying because it is of you. And you don't need all that much tape, just enough so that it doesn't wiggle around while you're moving it. So I'm going to cut out, I really love this style because all the contours kind of blend into each other. So I'm trying to keep the group of them. It's almost like a collage of contours. And so I like that, like the hair of one might go into the face of another. And you can see I do have one, that's me, wearing a face mask. I'm a teacher in 2020 and 2021, so a face mask is definitely a part of our lives. It's fun to have students work in groups and draw each other, or turn a document camera on one person and draw all together. And I like to experiment with different facial features, facial directions, hairstyles, just to get a really nice collage of different faces. Right now, I'm taking my time to figure out my composition or arrangement and organization of elements of my work of art. And again, cutting it out is optional. Maybe you get a piece of paper the exact same size as your styrofoam and you plan your drawing out where you don't need to cut anything. But because I had done all of these kind of randomly, and I didn't want to use all of them, I do have some that I didn't use. Once it's all arranged and your composition is done, The first step to styrofoam printmaking is transferring your drawing onto the styrofoam. Now, my students always get really confused because you're making a print, which is making a stamp. And so right now you're taking your drawing and you're just lightly transferring it to the styrofoam. So printmaking is a process. Sure, you could draw directly on your styrofoam and skip the whole thing of transferring a drawing, but you can't erase a carved line. So I always have my students draw it out first, arrange your composition, and then trace it by drawing with a different colored pen, or you could even use a colored pencil so you can see your lines. So you can see I'm using red, and your drawing's going to change a little bit. So the contour drawing that you did before, you're retracing your lines with the pen. I find myself still drawing in the contour style where I'm not picking up my pen a lot. I'm definitely picking it up some so that I can really emphasize certain lines and areas. And if there's a line that you think looks weird, change it. Or if you want to add a little bit more thick or thin. So you can see this picture of myself. I'm a little bit cross-eyed. One eye is up higher than the other. And that's the beauty of contour portraits. It's not about perfection. It's a stylized way of drawing that's really about capturing the moment and the object or person that you are drawing. I'm going to speed things up a little bit here because this is all about tracing. It's important with the red pen to make sure you get every single line and add some if you feel as if it needs it. Line variation is key, so you want some dark and some light lines, and so you can go back in with your pen and make some of your lines a little bit heavier. I'm going to speed things up even more since I'm simply tracing lines. You have to press down pretty hard. You're going to hear your styrofoam kind of like making that tracing sound. And so pressing down with your pen is key. You can see me picking up the pace here, and your hand will kind of hurt. That's why they call it artwork, because you're pressing down really hard with that pen to get that line traced. Okay, look, you can see the lines. And so the transfer step is finished. I'm going to remove my collage of contour drawings from my styrofoam, and it would be easier if you had like one piece of paper. You could attach it to that and just remove it. And so you can see my lines, but that's just one step. So remember, printmaking is a process. It's not just a drawing. If you were just drawing contours, you'd be done a long time ago. So printmaking, now that you've transferred it to the styrofoam, if you actually printed, the lines would not be carved deep enough to make a good print. Trust me, I've tried it. You want to retrace your lines so that they're super bold, clear, and emphasize when you make your multiple prints. I did have students do this before, and I always have them reflect on what was the most challenging part, or if they had advice, what would they give advice to another group of students doing this. And many students said it's so important to go back and make sure you have a clean, very clear trace line because you're making a stamp. So if your lines aren't clear, the ink isn't going to avoid it and it's not going to be a crisp line. I love styrofoam printmaking for contour drawing because both of these art disciplines are about lines. Contour drawing is one continuous line, and styrofoam printmaking, the details and the lines is what make it so interesting. So you might feel like you're going back and doing extra work because you drew it first, then you traced it, and now you're drawing it directly into the styrofoam. Trust me, printmaking is a process. It will pay off, and printmaking is so much fun. So don't think of it as just a drawing. Think of it as a whole process to making a really cool series of art. That's the great thing about printmaking is you get to repeat. You get to make a series. You get to make multiples of one image, and that's pretty cool. So I'm going to speed things up here again. I'm simply retracing my lines, and I am adding details if I feel like, for example, I want more lines for my hair, if I want my part of my hair to be darker, if I want my eye to stand out. So this is the point where you can really see your image with the red pen or whatever color you're using. You'll be able to see it because styrofoam, it will show up. And just retrace your lines, changing, adding as you go. Let's speed things up just a little bit. I would try and take up as much space as possible. The more white area you leave, that's what's going to be black or whatever color ink you use. So I do add a little bit of lines to go off the edge so that most of my space is taken up with my portrait collage. Now for printmaking, the most fun and messy part of this process. So printmaking literally means to make prints. And so I'm going to be using block printing ink, an inking tray, and a brayer. So I prefer using block printing ink because it's really sticky and tacky, and it just works so well with the lines that I've created. I have tried it with acrylic and tempera paint. You can get away with it, but block printing ink is designed for printmaking, so I do recommend splurging on that. I stick with just black, but you can have lots of fun mixing colors and using really fun colors. Listen to the sound the ink is making. You can see I'm running the brayer up and down, side to side to get a full, even layer of ink on the brayer. Then you take your brayer and you're gonna roll the ink over your styrofoam printing plate. You can see my drawing is just popping. So with printmaking, you're working in reverse. Everything you drew that was black originally, or red in this case, is now gonna actually resist or not have ink go into it. Sorry, it's after school, my brain's not working. And so the ink is going to touch all the flat surfaces that aren't carved. So it's the exact opposite of how you drew it, which is kind of fun. Make sure you go side to side, all the way off your edges, and always keep a clean and dirty section. Ink gets everywhere and it's kind of like honey. So I'm going to put out a fresh paper towel, or not paper towel, a fresh newspaper. And this is my printing station. So with clean hands, wash them or wipe them as you need. Lay your printing plate down, and I always start with a white piece of paper for a test print. I am doing this without a printing press. Your hand is what makes your print successful. Touch all sides and edges. Pay special close attention to pressing down across 100% of your surface. If you say, okay, I think I'm done now, do it a little bit more. You are the reason why this print will be successful as far as like how much you press down. You can kind of see because this is a thin piece of paper, you can kind of see the lines showing up through the back. So you can see this is me in real time. This is how much I'm doing it. Yeah, your hand might burn a little bit from the friction. And then you're going to pull your print carefully. And I like to use an old pencil to hold down my printing plate so I don't get ink all over my fingers. And here we go, let's pull the first print. Oh yes, look at those lines. Oh, that's really nice. Okay, so it's a little gray. I might try and add a little bit more ink next time. And yes, there is a next time. So go back to your dirty station or remove the clean newspaper, and then you're gonna re-ink your plate every single time. There is something called a ghost print where you print right after you printed once without adding ink, but I'm not doing that with this. I'm just using the ink on my tray to re-ink the printing plate so that I can have a nice crisp print the next time. So you can see me running the brayer. I am speeding this up a little bit. So if I act kind of spazzy or you can see I'm going fast, I'm speeding it up since it's not the first time you've seen me roll ink on the plate. Then you take your styrofoam printing plate and put it in your clean section. Leave that facing up. Wash your hands or wipe them if needed because ink gets everywhere. Yep, sanitizer and a tissue. I usually keep that in my apron pocket. And this time I'm going for a solid piece of yellow paper. I'm pressing and I can already tell I didn't put quite enough ink on it. I think it will still be a successful print, but this paper's really thick and so it also has a different texture to it. So my hand kind of feels awkward, but artwork, right? Pressing especially around the edges, the sides, the center. Press that print because you're making a stamp. And since there's not a printing press to roll it through evenly, your hand has to do the work. Pulling my print using my pencil, and nice. I could use a little bit more ink, but I don't mind that fade effect. It kind of has a 90s vibe to it. Let's do this one more time, and this time I'm trying a fancy background. So I have some watercolor options, and the key here, if you're doing a colorful background, this is all about lines. So you want to make sure that your paper is not so busy and distracting that your line work doesn't show up. I think I need a little bit more ink on here too. Yep, there we go. So if it feels dry and you're rolling the ink and it's not like making that tacky sound and it's not showing up, add some more ink. If it's too much, you'll see a bunch of your lines will be covered up. And in that case, what I would do is do another white test print and then roll it with a dry brayer without adding ink. So printmaking is all about figuring out what works, how much ink you need, and you get to do it multiple times until you kind of get it right. There is some luck involved. You might think it's going to be your best print. You might think it's going to be enough ink, but you never really know until it's too late. Okay, third and final print. I'm using this watercolor paper. I'm pressing, speeding things up since you've done it before, and let's see if this third and final print is my most successful one. I do like a colorful background, but I don't want to compete with my collage of portraits. It's almost like a classroom, bunch of different faces all put together. Printing using my pencil so that I don't get ink on my hands, and ooh, love this one and those lines. Okay, well, I feel like I had 3 successful prints. Thank you so much for sticking around and learning how to make styrofoam printmaking with me. And if you're interested in more art tutorials, check these out. Check out my full-length lesson plans at thatartteacher.com and find me on Instagram at thatartteacher_Machado.